The woman touched millions of hearts with her grace, wit, and emotional depth. But today, Goldie has broken hearts once again, this time with a quiet confession. I can barely see anything. Her world, once lit by fame and the flash of cameras, has now faded into a silent struggle few have seen. How cruel it is that a woman who brought so much light to others now finds herself surrounded by such heartbreaking personal darkness. Before we begin, we'd love to hear from you. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate Goldie Hawn as an actress? Tell us in the comments below. Your opinion truly matters. We were acquaintances, you know, and stuff, and Diane, I know. Before she became the dazzling blonde, with a signature giggle with a radiant presence on screen, Goldie Jean Hawn was just a little girl growing up in Tacoma Park, Maryland, a place far removed from the glitter and chaos of Hollywood. Born on November 21, 1945, to Laura and Edward Hawn, her early life appeared calm and ordinary on the outside. Her mother ran a dance school. Her father was a musician. It seemed like a home filled with rhythm, discipline, and artistic nurture. But beneath that harmonious surface, a quiet storm was brewing, one that would shape the emotional foundation of Goldie's life for decades to come. Even as a young child, Goldie suffered from deep and persistent anxiety. Long before she knew what panic attacks were, she felt them, creeping up like invisible shadows, stealing her breath, making the walls close in. She was terrified of things she couldn't control: war, loss, the unknown. She once confessed that as a little girl, she feared she'd never even lived long enough to experience something as simple as a first kiss. The innocence of childhood for Goldie was never untouched by worry. It was a time shadowed by internal battles no one could see. Unlike most children who dreamed of stardom and applause, Goldie's only dream was happiness. At just 11 years old, when people asked her if she wanted to be on Broadway or become a star, she answered with quiet clarity, "No, I just want to be happy." It was a startling response, one that even surprised the adults around her, but it was a glimpse into the depth of her inner world. Happiness for Goldie was not a luxury, it was a lifeline. At school, she struggled. Goldie had difficulty learning to read and was placed in the lowest reading group in class. It was a humiliating position for a sensitive child, but it also planted the first seeds of resilience. She credits her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Povich, for saving her, not with extraordinary interventions, but with gentle encouragement and unwavering belief in her potential. That validation mattered. It was perhaps the first time Goldie felt seen in a way that was safe. By the age of 3, she was already learning ballet. Dance became her escape, her language. It wasn't about performing for others, it was about losing herself in movement, in rhythm, in grace. Dance was the one place where the noise in her head faded. It gave her a sense of control, of purpose, of flow. That passion grew into her first real ambition, to open her own dance school. Goldie didn't dream of red carpets or flashing cameras. She dreamed of wooden floors, mirrors, music, and students. But life, as it often does, had other plans. At 18, filled with cautious hope, she moved to New York City for her first dance job at the World's Fair. It should have been a moment of triumph. But instead, Goldie found herself standing on 10th Avenue, utterly alone. The people she was supposed to stay with had left town. She had no home, no plan, and no safety net. It was her first true taste of adult vulnerability. Yet even in that moment of chaos, she didn't fall apart. She solved the problem. She stayed with her dance teacher for a few nights, found an apartment, and moved forward. It was the first real test of the quiet resilience she had built in childhood. Not long after, Goldie began getting jobs, small performances, then auditions. A new world was opening up, but with it came a storm she wasn't ready for. The more she succeeded, the more terrified she became. She started having full-blown panic attacks. Her body would tremble, her chest would tighten, her thoughts would spiral. The success that others saw as a blessing felt to her like a trap. She didn't want to be famous. She didn't want to be consumed by the machine. She just wanted peace. At 21, overwhelmed by fear and confusion, Goldie began seeing a psychologist. For the next 8 years, she delved into deep, often painful self-exploration. Through therapy and meditation, she slowly learned how to live with her anxiety, how to recognize it, how to breathe through it. It wasn't a quick fix. It was a long, quiet fight, one she waged privately, even as the world fell in love with her bright smile. Her mother's advice rang in her ears. When you're up for a job, you better be ready. It's not the producers that make you a star. It's the audience. Win their hearts, and you'll earn your place. That truth became her compass. Goldie never tried to manipulate fame. She let the audience decide if she was worth remembering, and they did. Looking back, it's clear. Goldie Hawn's childhood wasn't marked by the dramatic tragedies that make headlines, but by a more silent kind of suffering, the kind that lives in the mind, the kind that hides behind laughter, the kind that builds character without applause. It was a quiet battlefield, and she emerged from it, not unscarred, but deeply human. That humanity would later become her most powerful gift on screen. Of course I know my name. Goldie Hawn never intended to become a star. And yet, she became one almost by accident. In 1969, she played Toni Simmons in Cactus Flower, a role that would change the trajectory of her life forever. The wide-eyed, naive young woman she portrayed struck a deep emotional chord with audiences and with the Academy, too. At just 24, Goldie took home the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, a surreal victory that she never saw coming. She hadn't even watched the broadcast the night it aired. When she received the call, she thought it was a joke. "I wasn't even thinking about it," she later said. "I was just working. I had moved on." That sense of humble detachment would define her approach to fame for decades to come. While others chased the spotlight, Goldie often turned away from it. Even during her rise in the 70s and 80s, she approached each project with hesitation, not out of arrogance, but out of a deep need to protect her inner peace. She didn't want to be devoured by the system. She just wanted to create something meaningful, something that brought light, not pressure. But her talent was undeniable, and Hollywood couldn't look away. She became a leading lady, not just because she was beautiful or funny, but because there was something profoundly human in her. In Private Benjamin, 1980, she portrayed a spoiled widow who turns the army and transforms her life. The role, which earned her a second Oscar nomination, mirrored Goldie's real-life metamorphosis, a woman learning to navigate pain with humor, to find strength in vulnerability. Audiences didn't just laugh. They saw themselves in her confusion, her struggle, her quiet victories. She went on to star in films like Overboard, Death Becomes Her, and The First Wives Club, each character different, but all anchored in emotional truth. Especially in The First Wives Club, her portrayal of Elise, a glamorous actress grappling with age, rejection, and heartbreak, was deeply autobiographical. Goldie knew the pain of being seen only for her looks, of being dismissed because she grew older. She poured all of that ache into Elise, turning what could have been a caricature into a powerful commentary on womanhood in Hollywood. But perhaps her most courageous career move came when she stepped behind the camera. Goldie became a producer, not for prestige, but for freedom. She wanted to shape the stories she told, to uplift voices that mattered, to create films that reflected real women, complex, flawed, and beautiful in their imperfection. Her production company gave her agency in an industry that often tried to strip it away. It was a quiet rebellion, and it changed everything. Throughout the decades, Goldie Hawn refused to be boxed in. She didn't chase fame. She chased authenticity, and that pursuit made her more iconic than any award ever could. We're friends, we're companions, and we're a couple. She brought joy to millions, yet behind the curtain, Goldie Hawn has endured more than her share of silent battles. Her life, once a cascade of glittering premieres, flashing cameras and warm ovations, has in recent years slowed into something quieter, heavier, and, at times, devastatingly isolating. Her radiant smile remains, but the weight behind it has grown into something heartbreakingly visible. In March 2025, during a moment that shocked and moved millions, Goldie stepped onto the Oscars stage alongside Andrew Garfield. As she turned to read the teleprompter, she paused. The words didn't come. Her smile faltered. Then, with a small laugh that couldn't mask the truth, she admitted, "I'm completely blind. I am cataracts." That short sentence was devastating, a cruel reminder that even the brightest stars can be swallowed by shadows. Cataracts are common among the elderly, but for someone like Goldie Hawn, a woman who once lit up screens with her luminous eyes and expressive charm, the irony was cruel. The world she had once seen so vividly now appeared through a clouded lens. And it wasn't just her eyesight that had begun to fade. It was the presence, the rhythm, the closeness that used to define her world. It wasn't the first time she had felt herself disappearing. Long before the diagnosis, Goldie had quietly battled the slow erosion of fame. Hollywood is famously unkind to women as they age. The roles thinned. The phone rang less often. Where once her name had been on every marquee, now she found herself watching from the sidelines. And yet, that retreat into silence didn't bring peace. It brought reflection, and it brought pain. Goldie has always been open about her decades-long struggle with anxiety and panic attacks. From a young age, the pressure to perform, to please, to maintain an image she never asked for, became too much. At 21, she sought therapy, not as a passing experiment, but as a full commitment to healing. For 8 years, she met regularly with a psychologist, peeling back the layers of fear that had quietly governed her life. Around this same period, Goldie also experienced a deeply personal heartbreak, her first and only divorce. In 1969, she married Gus Triconis, a dancer and aspiring director. What began as a hopeful union quickly unraveled beneath the weight of Hollywood's pressures and Goldie's rising fame. While she rarely speaks about the pain of that chapter, it marked one of her earliest lessons in emotional survival. The quiet dissolution of their marriage in 1976 left an imprint, one that deepened her understanding of loneliness, of love lost too soon, and of the emotional cost behind a public smile. It would be many years before she found lasting companionship again, but that early loss lingered in the background, shaping how she trusted, how she loved, and how she protected her heart moving forward. She once said that anxiety didn't just affect her mind, it claimed her body. She would tremble uncontrollably, her chest would tighten until it felt like it might collapse. Her thoughts would spiral into a darkness so cruel it felt like drowning, alone, unheard, in a room full of air. And as her fame rose, so did the shadows. The spotlight that gave her everything also stripped her bare. Later in life, another weight settled on her shoulders. Regret, not about fame or roles lost, but about time. Time not spent with her children. Time stolen by flights, by sets, by red carpets. "I wish I could have been there more," she confessed once, her voice breaking. "I missed games, I missed moments, and those are things you can't get back." Despite those regrets, she built a family filled with love. Her children, now adults, remain close, but even love doesn't always protect against loneliness. As friends passed, as the world moved on, Goldie found herself reflecting more on legacy than on career. Her work with the Mind Up Foundation became a lifeline. She poured herself into it, using neuroscience, mindfulness, and emotional education to help children understand their own brains and build resilience. It gave her a purpose beyond fame. Yet, even in her advocacy, she sometimes felt the ache of being unseen. "I never wanted to be a star," she said. "I just wanted to be happy." But happiness, in later years, has become a quiet, fragile thing. There are good days, days filled with laughter, grandchildren, soft music, and the comfort of home. But there are also days marked by shadows, of the past, of declining health, of memories that return not with warmth, but with sting. Her battle with vision loss is ongoing. Cataracts, while treatable, are only one part of the physical toll. Aging has brought fatigue, fragility, and the slow erosion of independence. Public appearances have become rarer. When she does emerge, fans comment on her glow, but few see the immense courage it takes just to walk across a stage. Inside, there is still the girl who just wanted to dance, who only ever dreamed of opening a ballet school, who stood alone on 10th Avenue in New York with nowhere to sleep and figured it out anyway. That girl never truly left. She simply grew older. And perhaps the most heartbreaking truth of all is that the more she gave the world, the more it forgot how much she carried alone. As the applause fades and the cameras dim, what remains is the essence of Goldie Hawn, a woman of extraordinary depth, relentless resilience, and a heart still searching for quiet joy. She doesn't ask for sympathy, only to be remembered, not just for the light she gave, but for the darkness she survived. And that, perhaps, is her most profound performance of all. Hello, here's Dan with the news of the future. North. At 80 years old, Goldie Hawn lives a life that is no longer measured in awards or premieres, but in quiet mornings, soft conversations, and the joyful chaos of grandchildren's laughter. She resides away from the glitz of Hollywood, surrounded by nature and family, holding tightly to the few things that have always brought her peace: love, simplicity, and presence. Her days are slower now, but not empty. She wakes with gratitude, meditates in silence, and walks through her garden, as if each flower were a poem, written just for her. Goldie has learned that true fulfillment comes not from being seen by millions, but from being known by a few, deeply and truly. And through it all, through decades of change, triumphs, and trials, Goldie has never walked entirely alone. Her life partner, actor Kurt Russell, has stood beside her for over 4 decades. A love story that defied Hollywood odds and bloomed without the need for wedding rings. In a world so quick to unravel, theirs remains a steady, grounding presence. Together they raised a blended family, built a life of quiet strength, and proved that true partnership is not declared on paper, but lived in moments ordinary, faithful, enduring. She still works with Mind Up, now a global force in children's mental wellness. Under her leadership, the program has reached over 7 million children worldwide, giving them the tools to breathe through anxiety, focus their minds, and believe in their self-worth. For Goldie, this impact far outweighs any box office number. What makes her legacy remarkable is not just her body of work, but the spirit behind it. She has lived with laughter, yes, but also with conviction, with courage, with an unwavering belief that joy is not something you stumble into. It's something you cultivate through pain, through choice, through resilience. Her influence stretches beyond screens and classrooms. To fellow artists, she is a symbol of reinvention and integrity. To women, she is proof that beauty does not expire, and that a voice once silenced by ageism can still echo with power. And to everyday people, especially those quietly fighting their own invisible battles, Goldie Hawn is hope wrapped in grace. She may no longer headline blockbusters or dominate tabloids, but make no mistake, her light hasn't dimmed. It has simply turned inward, shining where it matters most. Goldie Hawn's story is no longer one of fame, but of purpose, not of applause, but of impact. And in that quiet, extraordinary legacy, she continues to shine. You're no fun anymore, Daddy Boy. When old age quietly arrives, it rarely announces itself with thunder. It comes gently, through slower steps, longer silences, and the quiet fading of light, once so vibrant. And now, in a moment that has shaken the hearts of many, the world receives devastating news about Goldie Hawn, a woman whose laughter once echoed through theaters, and whose joy once danced across silver screens. Her world today is marked by vision loss, fragile health, and a profound stillness that only time and age can bring. How unbearably cruel it feels that someone who gave so much light to the world must now navigate her days surrounded by shadows. It is heartbreaking beyond words to watch the icon of joy quietly disappear into silence. But in this sorrow, there is also reverence. Goldie Hawn's life has been a testament to grace under fire, to strength in vulnerability, to beauty that goes far beyond the surface. And though she may no longer stand in the spotlight, her spirit, gentle, fierce, and luminously human, continues to shine through every soul she's touched. If you have ever cried or laughed with the roles of Goldie Hawn, if her performances brought back memories as vivid as yesterday, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Let each video from Celebs Rewind be a journey back through time, a gentle reminder of the stars who shaped our hearts and the echoes they've left behind. Gentle music, gentle music.